This sounds familiar except for the ending. A far-right political candidate for the presidency who's anti-immigration committed crimes including embezzlement. Now, what happened next? And why is France showing America how to lead a democracy? I'm Michael Popok with reporting about the conviction of Marine Le Pen, who headed a major right-wing party in France, who was considered to be the leading candidate to replace President Macron in 2027. She's going to be spending a couple of years in jail, and more to the point, because of the way French law works, different than ours apparently, she's going to be banned by the judge for 5 years for running for office. France showing America how to lead when it comes to the rule of law and our political system. I'm Michael Popok. Let's talk about it here on Legal AF. Now look, Marine Le Pen, whose father is a notorious right-wing anti-Semite in France, she took over the party leadership and spent the last several years trying to sanitize that party, which is now known as the National Rally Party, and try to make them more palatable to the French people, and I guess the American people too. For years, the problem the father had in running the party is that he was a known far-right, almost neo-Nazi, and that kept him out of reaching the highest levels of power in France. But his daughter, 56-year-old Marine Le Pen, really, wanted, in much the way that David Duke made being the head of the KKK seem more palatable when he was running for office, that's what she did. Now look, there's no denying they did reasonably well in the most recent election in France. They took many of the seats, and now Macron did not ultimately reward them with major power sharing, but pretty darn close. But in the backdrop, their criminal justice system fast at work trying to get to the bottom of whether she and the party committed embezzlement and diverted $4.8 million US away from what it should have been used for to advance their political agenda. That was a no-no under French law, and you have a judge who had the brass ones in a way that even our judges like Merchan in New York did not have towards Donald Trump. Let's face it, I have a lot of respect for Judge Merchan in New York, but he blinked at the end and only sentenced Donald Trump to a suspended sentence rather than giving him actually a term, and was not able, under the way our Constitution runs, was not able to ban him and bar him from running for office again. I know a lot of our European friends and allies here on the Midas Touch and Legal AF network were questioning, conviction doesn't keep him off the ballot? No. One, I don't think our founding fathers and framers of the Constitution ever envisioned that we'd have a criminal convict that people, even the populist people, would want to vote into power. Although that's a little strange, because when you read the Federalist Papers, they were very concerned, and which is why they had the structure they had with the 3 co-equal branches of government, and why they created the Electoral College to prevent just a really popular criminal from becoming president. But I don't think they ever thought that would really happen. So there's nothing in the Constitution that prevents a felon, obviously, for running for president. But in France, different story. The judge is actually given the power to stop and ban somebody from the ballot. Isn't that lovely? Now, how do we do it here? We'd have to change our Constitution, which is not happening anytime soon. Let's be frank. Even if we held a constitutional convention, and there was amendments that were proposed coming out of the Constitutional Convention, 2/3 of the states, 2/3 of the House and the Senate would have to approve. We can't get 2/3 of the people to agree on a sweet greens order. So not happening. Not anytime soon anyway, which is probably a good thing. But what will happen now under this French law? Apparently under French law, as soon as Marine Le Pen files her appeal, the order is stayed, and she gets to try to reverse it at the appellate level all the way up to the French equivalent of their Supreme Court. But this will either have one of two effects. This will either galvanize support around her from the alt and far right, because democracy is under attack around the world, not just in America. When Donald Trump gives permission to places like Romania and in other in South America for democratic principles to be trampled on, because they're being trampled on here. So of course, what's to stop lesser democratic countries from doing the same thing and moving towards totalitarianism? It happened in the first Trump term as well, as strongmen try to take the lead. Fortunately, what we're watching here, I think too, is at least the justice system in these various countries holding these people accountable. I mean, you've got the Argentinian president could go to jail for a cryptocurrency scandal. I mean, at the inauguration, he was the toast of Washington, the Trump of Argentina, But by contrast, while those people, Bolsonaro from Brazil going to prison, the Argentinian president probably going to prison, Le Pen going to prison, or likely going to prison for a couple of years, you have other real true populists, for the people leaders rising up, like Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico. Like the person who just took over as the prime minister in Canada. These are people that are for the people. And that is what we're watching for the existential fight for the soul of democracy. While the Chinese and the Russians rub their hands in glee for every misstep by our purported leader of the free world, Donald Trump, that felon in chief. I think it's important to report on how other countries, our democratic allies, treat candidates for president. Now, France is pretty liberal, as we all know, about their leaders. You want to cheat on your wife or your husband? They'll probably look the other way. Having a mistress, or whatever the male equivalent of a mistress is, on the side, a little side gig outside your marriage, that never really stopped any of the presidents or prime ministers for France or in countries like Italy. But when it comes to crime, they're out. Berlusconi, Italy, boom, out. Le Pen, boom, candidate for president, out. We got to take a lesson from that. But in order for us to get there, just to leave it on this, we got to get to the point where we either have people that we can trust that are honorable in the positions of power, or we've got to reform parts of our Constitution to ensure that we never have to face these choices again. I've already gone through an era where I hoped and trusted that my fellow Americans would do the right thing and not send a felon in chief back to the White House. That didn't happen. I can't count on that again. So we've got to reinstall guardrails. It starts with the midterm elections here in America. Give me back the Senate and the House. We'll restore dignity. We'll restore the balance of power. We'll restore checks and balance. We may even do an impeachment and a conviction of Donald Trump. All starts with voting, and voting starts now, not in 2 years. Till my next report on all things global AF, I'm Michael Popok. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.